It's one thing to feel lost inside your own head and heart and life, but it's a whole other thing to try to bear up under that heaviness while you still show up for the people who count on you. You love them and you want to be there for them, but when you feel like you're barely keeping things going for yourself, showing up for others can feel like an impossible task. And so the guilt piles on. I should be able to handle this. Why can't I just snap out of it and just be who they need me to be? Well, if that's you, today we are going to talk about how to show up for others when you feel stuck and how to do it without abandoning yourself in the process. Welcome to the Confident Christian Woman podcast, where we tackle questions about things that have been keeping you stuck in unfulfillment, dissatisfaction, or straight up misery. This is where you'll find the help you need to move forward from confusion, fear, or self-doubt into joy, fulfillment, and peace. This is where we become confident Christian women who not only believe, we obey. Now, let's dive in. Our question today is, how do I show up for others when I feel stuck in my own life? Well, let me kick things off by saying that in this episode, we are not going to address your stuckness, okay? That's not what this episode is for. We cover that in other areas. So if you are wanting to find a way out of your own stuckness, that's another episode. It's a different episode. Instead, what we're addressing today is the issue of your struggle to show up for others when you feel like you can barely show up for yourself. So let's kick things off with a truth that we all know but often tend not to live by. Trying to pour at the same rate that we usually do from an empty bucket is no good. Trying to pour from an empty bucket obviously is no good, but trying to do it even at the same, trying to pour, even if you're not completely empty, trying to pour at the same rate that you usually do is no good when you are feeling this kind of stuckness in your own life, right? In fact, it's really a guaranteed fast track to resentment and to burnout. So the solution to this issue is not forcing yourself to keep showing up and to keep pouring, but it's also not abdicating your life and your responsibilities or your commitments to other people, right? Instead, the solution lies in getting honest about what's really happening inside you so that you can then show up authentically for the people that you love. And it won't feel forced. Authenticity never feels forced. So go back in time with me now to my corporate days. I remember standing like a statue at my office window and just staring out without seeing anything. My eyes were not actually seeing what was in front of me. And as I stood there, except for the occasional recrossing of my arms, like just switch how I cross my arms, and the occasional blink of my eyes, I did not move an inch. I was just standing there and looking like a statue. But my mind was frantically racing around, desperate to find a solution to the problem that had been plaguing me for months at that point. My struggle felt real, and I was beyond desperate to find a way to stop feeling lost in my own life. It had started out small, like just little bouts of dissatisfaction here and there, but eventually it kind of ballooned into something that felt like it was alive and just gobbling up more of me every day. It felt like a third person in the room. Like if me and somebody else were in the room, felt like it was like a third person. It was just sucking up all the air around me, and I felt like I was suffocating in my own life, right? But as that was happening inside of me, I still had people who I loved and who I promised, I promised to show up for. I had people who were depending on me. And I wanted to be there for them, but my heart was just whispering, I feel so lost and wrung out and empty, and I didn't know how to keep showing up for them. And that's probably the icky place that you're living in right now. On the outside, things look good, maybe even great, but inside you're really struggling to show up for those who are depending on you and those who maybe you've committed to showing up for. Well, here is the thing that you need to know. There is a lot more going on underneath your struggle. And in my opinion, this is great news. It is great news to know that there is more going on underneath that, all of that, because once you identify the truth of what's really happening, that's when you can begin to address it and move forward. So to get to what's really going on under all of this ickiness, let's get honest about the stories that are running unnoticed in the background of your mind. Because noticing them is what is going to empower you to solve this problem of showing up for others when you feel stuck yourself. So the first thing is performance pressure, and how you may have tangled up your identity with performance. You may feel obligated to show up for others out of guilt or out of expectation or out of fear of disappointing people, which may be an indication that you believe that your worth and value are tied tightly with how much you do for others, even when you're running on empty. If you equate your worth with your usefulness, then of course you'll feel compelled to deliver and maybe even over deliver in order to keep a steady stream of approval and love flowing in your direction, right? So the story that is running unchecked behind this kind of situation sounds like, if I stop showing up full force the way I usually do, then it means I'm less valuable and I'll risk losing people. Or if I stop showing up the way I've always shown up, will people still value me? Number two, second thing is shame about struggling. Oh gosh, so many of us as Christians feel that, like shame about struggling. Girl, you gotta kick that to the curb. You might feel embarrassed or ashamed that you feel stuck, right? And you don't want others to see your quote unquote weakness. I don't know why we think we're weak when we show where we're struggling. And so you try to hide your stuckness and you overcompensate by being there for everyone. It's almost like a cover-up. And so the story running unchecked behind this situation can sound like, if I admit that I'm struggling, will people see me as a failure? Or if people see that I'm stuck, they'll think I'm a failure, so I have to keep looking strong. And so you end up feeling isolated and resentful, and you end up curating a lie of a life that costs you peace. That's what I did for years. Lie of a life. Curated a life that looked great and had not 1 ounce of peace in it. All right. Third up is boundary confusion. It may be that you don't know the difference between serving others out of abundance or overflow versus serving out of depletion. And this can look like you treating every need of others like it's yours to solve, because saying no maybe feels unspiritual to you, right? So the story running unchecked behind this is something like, good Christians never say no. My needs are less important than everyone else's. Or God expects me to keep pouring out even when I feel empty. And the thing is, that without clear boundaries, you put yourself at risk of burning out or resenting the very people who you want to love well and to show up for well. So you really have to be aware of that possibility. The fourth thing is a fear of falling behind. Did you know that helping others can be a way to distract yourself from your own stuckness? And when you do that, what you end up doing is putting yourself in a position where you end up resenting the time that you invest in others, because it feels like it's stealing from fixing your own life, right? Like you don't have anything left over to put towards fixing what's going on in your life. And then the story running unchecked here is every time I give, every minute that I give away, it pushes my life further off track. And so then you end up feeling guilt for pouring into them and for helping them, and anxiety when you don't pour into them or help them. And then you also feel a constant sense of just being behind. Let me slip this in here real quick. If you've been nodding along today thinking, oh my gosh, this is exactly what I need, then you need to know about the Next Step Reset. It's a guided, self-paced coaching experience that will help to shift you from feeling frozen to moving forward with God. You'll find the link to it in the show notes. Now, let's get back to today's episode. Fifth is that you may have a wrong biblical understanding of strength. It may be that you believe that good Christians always put others first, no matter what their personal struggles are. You may believe that God expects constant strength and self-sufficiency from you. And so the story that is running unchecked behind this situation sounds like needing help means I'm weak and not a good Christian. Or if I step back, does that make me selfish or unfaithful? But when that is a story that's running things, it doesn't leave any room for seasons of rest, seasons of healing, or seasons of letting others carry you. It does not leave room for receiving from others who want to give to you. You know, a lot of us are such good givers, such good givers. We are so good at giving, and we're terrible at receiving. We're awful at it. We think that we should not receive. We have some lies going on that we're not to receive, but others want to give too. And if they want to give to you, why on earth wouldn't you want to receive it? Don't you want the people who you give to receive from you? Then why is it that you believe that you shouldn't receive from those who want to give to you? All right, number 6, the last one, is that you may have an unhelpful understanding of what showing up means. You might think that showing up means that you are supposed to solve people's problems, that you're supposed to fix them or advise them or have all the answers for them. You think that showing up means being a hero. And the story running behind this kind of situation can sound like, if I can't solve this, then I'm not useful. Or if I don't have answers or solutions, do I even have anything of value to contribute? Well, in reality, showing up could simply mean being present with them, praying for them, encouraging them, or being honest and open with them. It could be as simple as that. All right, that was a lot. That was a lot, right? And I'm curious, did you identify yourself in any of those 6 areas? I really hope that you did, because if you did, then it means that you found a door to something better. So let's see how scripture can help us here. And please don't expect some kind of one and done quick fix for your problem, because what we're looking at is principles for how God wants us to think and to live. And principles are not something that you get like one and done and all of a sudden, yeah, okay, I live that way now. Like, it takes time to really understand and to align your life to live with God's principles. He works with you little by little. So first, let's look at 2 Corinthians 12, verses 9 to 10, where Paul begs God to remove what is weakening him, what is causing him to feel weak, right? And God answers Paul and says, my grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. And Paul's response then is to boast. He starts to boast in his weakness so that Christ's power may rest upon him, right? So what this passage does is it helps us to start to dismantle that faulty performance-driven identity belief, right? That are running the show in the background, and those faulty beliefs about strength and what being strong means. Because if God's power shows up strongest when you are not strong, then you don't have to fake strength to be valuable or to be effective, right? Instead of faking it, you can just show up honestly, which might sound something like, you know what, I care about you so much and I'm at a limited capacity today or this week, so I can listen for 20 minutes, including time to pray with you. Instead of just interminable. Can you see how you still show up for them even while you show up for yourself? Right? It's possible. Another scripture that is very helpful here is Galatians 6, verse 2. Which says, share each other's burdens and in this way obey the law of Christ. Now, I can already hear you saying, yeah, that's exactly what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to share their burdens. But who are you allowing to share your burdens? Or do you have a story running unchecked in the background of your mind that you're above that need of having others share your burdens? Oh gosh. I had that happen to me yesterday, where I was burdened and it never occurred to me. Look here, guys, please understand that some of this I've already walked through and some of this I'm able to talk to you about because I am walking through it now. And this happened to me yesterday. I had a burden and thank God that he sent someone along who would not take no for an answer. And I was like, no, it's not time to share this is not an appropriate time to share my answer. And the person just pressed in and said, no. And ended up praying for me. And it felt like the weight of the burden was lifted. Right? So if you have a belief and a habit that you're above the need of sharing your burdens, or others get to share their burdens with you, but you don't get to share yours with anybody else, oh, you need to debunk that lie. You need to kick that lie to the curb. It is robbing you. Because showing up doesn't mean that you are everybody else's pat mule. Okay? You don't have to keep doing that. Instead, showing up means participating in a two-way exchange of care. So when somebody asks you for support, you can respond by saying, here's what I can offer this week. And also, here's something that I could really use prayer or help with as well. Right? So you are offering, you're telling them what you can offer them this week in terms of your time or whatever else, depending on what the situation is. But you're also asking for them to share your burden as well. Right? With prayer or with some help. All right. The last scripture we're going to look at, we're going to see what Jesus has to say that can help in this situation. And we find in Matthew 11 verses 28 to 30 that Jesus says, come to me, all of you who are weary and carry burdens, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you, for my yoke is easy and my burden is light. I don't know if a lot of us realize that a yoke is a shared load, right? It means a shared load and pacing with Jesus. Doesn't that, oh my gosh, just even thinking about that feels so much better. It feels so much better. It's a shared load, and it is a pacing with Jesus. You're not out of step and you're not carrying it by yourself, right? It means that you serve from rest. You don't serve in order to earn rest. All right, like I've done enough now, I can rest. You serving from rest, not to earn rest. So before you go ahead and say yes to somebody's request of you, you can do a yoke check. Just do a yoke check and ask, am I consenting to Jesus's pace, which is the perfect pace? Or am I consenting to pressure from other people or even pressure from myself? And if it turns out that it's pressure that you're wanting to yield to, then it's time to pause and recalibrate your decision making so that you're going at Jesus's pace, right? Instead of somebody else's or even yours. So instead of asking, how do I show up for others when I feel stuck in my own life? Let's reframe it into more useful and more helpful questions. And I'm going to give you a bunch of them right now to get started. So here we go. What is my capacity this week or even today? And what would it look like to tell the truth about it? Oh, guys, so many of us are so scared of the truth, of telling the truth. Oh, but I'm telling you from personal experience, once you start telling the truth, you can't stop. It's like you get addicted to just telling yourself the truth so you can't stop lying to people. Okay, here's the next question. Where have I tied my worth to being helpful? And what would it look like if I let Jesus define my worth instead? Life-changing. If I suspended my compulsion and desire to fix things for others, how could I offer them my presence? Like listening, prayer, or even some small practical help. How can I offer them my presence within my limits? Who are my burden sharers? And what help am I willing to receive from them this week? Is this yes that somebody wants from me or that I want to give aligned with Jesus's pace, or is it aligned with my fear or guilt or my image management? What specific boundary conversation do I need to have so that I can serve sustainably? That can be tough for those who are addicted to to doing things for others, like constantly being on the go and not giving ourselves a moment to think or to breathe or to process. Some of us are addicted to that. Go, because it means we don't have to stop and think about things. So that can be really, that question can change things for you. And here's the last question for you. Which of the 6 underneath statements, those statements and stories I told you are running in the background that you don't notice, go back and listen to them again if you need to. So which of those 6 statements is driving me today? And what Christ-centered truth will I choose instead? Now, those are some very powerful questions that can help you to take the pressure off yourself and give you enough room to start dealing with your own stuckness. Remember here, what we're talking about here is addressing underlying issues that are keeping you from dealing with the big thing that you want to deal with, which is your stuckness. You'd feel like you don't have the space or the capacity to deal with it, right? Because you want to show up for everybody else. And so if you answer these questions that I've just given you, then you really begin to give yourself the space and the room to deal with your stuckness. So your action step for this week, my recommendation for you is that you first recognize and confess to God where you have acted like your usefulness is tied to your worth and where you've believed it. Listen, if that is true, please know that what you're saying then is that Jesus dying on the cross for you, Jesus dying on the cross for you meant nothing. because it's his act and his sacrifice that make you worth it, not your actions or your usefulness. So if you are continuing to and insisting on believing that your worth is all wrapped up with how useful you are, then you are saying that what Jesus did doesn't matter. Stew on that for a minute and let that really sink in. Once you have done that, once you have confessed to God where you were acting like this and believing this, then identify the story that is running amok and causing you to be in this problem in the first place, right? So go back and listen to those 6 stories I gave you. And once you've identified the story, then get with God, like sit with him, present it to him, and together with him, be guided by him so you can decide on how you can show up smaller and more honestly instead of how you have been showing up. Once you get a handle on this, once you kind of understand what's going on here, it means that you will have put yourself in a position to create the space to deal with your own stuckness, which the next step, reset, can help you with. I'll put a link to that in the show notes so you can check it out. And it can help you then, once you've created this space, it can help you then to deal with your own stuckness and start moving forward out of that. All right. That was a lot, right? But it was so good because when you dig up this stuff, what you're doing is giving yourself the opportunity to deal with it. And once you give yourself the opportunity to deal with it, then you give yourself more emotional space to address and deal with your own stuckness. For a very long time, I stood at my office window asking God to fix me. Back then, what I couldn't see yet, I see it now, but I couldn't see it at the time, was that I actually really needed to identify and address the stories that I had been living by, those unconscious stories, right? Because I had a lot of thinking that was completely out of alignment with God and his word. So out of line. Oh gosh. Oh my goodness. But when I started telling the truth, and starting with myself, started telling myself the truth, and then started confessing that truth to God, telling him the truth. And when I started showing up as I was, instead of as who I thought people needed to be or needed me to be, or who they said they needed me to be, that was when life got sweet, when I just showed up as me. Still hard sometimes because, it's life. It's not always, sunshine and unicorns and a bed of roses. But it was infinitely sweeter than it had been when I was still lying. So here's your bottom line for today. You can choose to show up truthfully. You can choose to serve within your God-given limits. And you can choose to let Jesus' power fill up the gaps that you can't fill. That's the kind of showing up that matters and that lasts and that makes a difference. Thanks for listening today. If you'd like extra support, don't forget to grab your free Clarity Roadmap. It's a free guide that's designed to give you a quick jump start out of feeling stuck. Remember, you don't have to have all the answers. You only need your one next step. And this free roadmap is a great place to start. You'll find the link in the show notes.